God sees you. He knows the weight on your heart, the silent battles you fight, and the questions that keep you awake at night. Even when you feel unseen or unheard, his eyes are always on you. He understands the pain of feeling stuck, the frustration of doors closing, and the longing for something more. Nothing in your life is hidden from him, not your doubts, your fears, or even the moments you wonder if he's still listening. There are times when life seems like an endless cycle where every effort feels like running in place. You may look around and feel like everyone else is moving forward while you remain trapped in the same struggles. But God has not forgotten you. He knows exactly where you are, and he knows exactly where you need to go. The discomfort you feel is not meant to break you, it is meant to wake you up. When something no longer serves the purpose God intended for you, he begins to stir your heart, nudging you towards something greater. The problem is we often resist change. We cling to what is familiar, even when it is draining us. We convince ourselves that this is just how life is, that maybe we are meant to struggle, that maybe our dreams were never meant to come true. But God never intended for you to live a life of stagnation. He is not a God of dead ends. He is a God of open doors. If you feel restless, if you feel like you are meant for more, it is because he is preparing you for a new path. Think of the moments in your life when you have felt lost or broken. Did you ever look back later and realize that those struggles were actually leading you somewhere? That what once felt like a setback was really a setup for something better? God operates in ways we do not always understand in the moment. He allows certain things to end, certain relationships to fall apart, and certain plans to fail because he sees the full picture. What feels like rejection is often redirection. What feels like loss is sometimes God making room for something greater. But stepping into something new requires trust. It requires the willingness to let go of the old, to stop holding on to the familiar just because it feels safe. Safety is not always the same as purpose. Just because you have learned to survive in one place does not mean you were meant to stay there forever. God is calling you forward, not because he wants to take something from you, but because he wants to give you something better. The path ahead may not be fully clear yet, but clarity is not a prerequisite for faith. Faith is believing that even when you do not see the full road, God is guiding every step. He does not promise that the journey will be easy, but he promises that you will never walk alone. You do not have to figure it all out on your own. You just have to be willing to take the first step. So if you have been feeling stuck, if you have been waiting for a sign, this is it. The restlessness in your heart is not by accident. The longing for something more is not just wishful thinking. It is God's way of telling you that he has a new path for you. One that leads to healing, growth, and a life far greater than anything you could create on your own. Trust him. Move forward. The new path is waiting. Change is never easy. It requires letting go of what is comfortable and stepping into the unknown. But when God begins to stir something in your heart, when he starts making you restless in the place where you once felt settled, it is not by accident. It is his way of calling you towards something greater. He knows that staying where you are will not take you where he wants you to be. So he disrupts your comfort, shakes the foundation of your plans, and begins to shift things around you, not to harm you, but to prepare you. Transformation is not a gentle process. It often comes through challenges, through closed doors, and through moments that make you question everything. You might find yourself in situations that force you to grow, to change, to let go of what you once held onto so tightly. It is in these moments that God is refining you, stripping away the things that no longer serve his purpose in your life. What you see as loss, he sees as pruning. What you view as disappointment, he sees as redirection. The problem is we resist transformation because it requires surrender. We want things to change, but we do not want to go through the process of change. We want a new beginning, but we struggle to release the past. God cannot give you what is ahead if you are still clinging to what is behind. The longer you hold on to what no longer fits, the more frustrated you will feel. That frustration is not meant to break you, it is meant to push you forward. Think of a butterfly. It does not transform without struggle. The cocoon that once protected it eventually becomes the very thing it must fight to break free from. Without that struggle, it would never develop the strength it needs to fly. The same is true for you. The resistance you feel, the battles you are fighting, the moments when everything seems uncertain, these are all part of the transformation. God is strengthening you, preparing you, shaping you for the new path ahead. Transformation requires faith. You may not see the full picture now. You may not understand why certain things are happening the way they are. But faith is about trusting that God sees what you cannot. It is about believing that even when the path is unclear, He is leading you somewhere better. If you wait until everything makes sense, you may never move. If you wait until you feel completely ready, you may stay in the same place forever. God is not waiting for you to have all the answers. He is waiting for you to take the first step. The call to transformation is not just about changing your circumstances. It is about changing your heart, your mindset, and your willingness to trust God's plan over your own. It is about letting go of fear and stepping forward with courage, even when the way ahead feels uncertain. It is about realizing that the life you are meant for is on the other side of obedience. So if you feel the pull, if you know deep down that God is calling you to something more, do not ignore it. Do not let fear keep you where you were never meant to stay. The transformation is already happening. Trust the process. Walk in faith. The new path is waiting. Holding on to what is familiar is natural. We find comfort in routine, in what we know, even if it no longer serves us. But there comes a moment when God begins to stir something inside of us, a deep awareness that we cannot stay where we are. It is in that moment that we face one of the hardest truths. We cannot embrace the new if we are still clinging to the old. Letting go is not easy. It often feels like loss, like surrendering control over something we have worked so hard to hold together. We fear the uncertainty of what comes next, wondering if what we release will ever be replaced with something better. But what if the very thing we refuse to let go of is the very thing holding us back? What if we are delaying God's plan because we are too afraid to make room for it? We tend to hold on for many reasons: fear of the unknown, attachment to the past, or the belief that what we have now is the best we will ever get. But God does not take things away without purpose. He does not ask us to release something unless He has something greater in store. The problem is we often cannot see it in the moment. All we see is what we are losing, not what we are gaining. We feel the emptiness left behind, but have not yet experienced the fullness of what God is preparing. That is where faith comes in. Faith is trusting that even in the absence of clarity, God is working for our good. It is believing that the pain of letting go is temporary, but the blessings on the other side are eternal. Abraham had to leave his home before he saw the promise. The Israelites had to walk away from Egypt before reaching the promised land. Peter had to step out of the boat before he could walk on water. Every great move of God requires a release of fear, of comfort, of the past. One of the greatest obstacles to letting go is the fear of what life will look like without what we have grown used to. But we must ask ourselves, is it truly serving us, or are we just afraid to move on? Holding on to old hurts, old mindsets, and old seasons that have expired only keeps us from experiencing the new path God has prepared. Sometimes He closes doors not to punish us, but to push us forward. He removes relationships not to leave us lonely, but to create space for better ones. He allows certain things to end so that we can step into something new. There is freedom and release. When we let go of the old, we are not left empty. We are making room for what is meant to be. We stop fighting for what is no longer ours and start trusting that God's plans are greater than our own. We stop looking back at what was and begin moving forward to what is coming. And in that trust, we find peace. So if you feel God asking you to let go, do not resist it. Trust that He sees what you cannot. Trust that the best is not behind you, but ahead. The new path is waiting. Step forward in faith. Fear is one of the greatest barriers to change. It whispers doubts, magnifies uncertainties, and convinces us that staying where we are is safer than stepping into the unknown. But God never called us to live in fear. He calls us to walk in faith, to trust that even when we cannot see the full picture, He is already making a way. Faith is not the absence of fear. It is choosing to move forward despite it. Every great journey with God requires faith. When He calls you to something new, He rarely gives you all the details up front. He does not show you every step before you take the first one. Instead, He asks you to trust Him, to believe that He is leading you somewhere greater even when the path is unclear. Fear will try to keep you stuck, reminding you of past failures, filling your mind with what ifs, and making you question if you are truly ready. But faith does not wait for perfect conditions. It moves forward, knowing that God's plan is greater than any fear that tries to hold you back. Think about the moments in your life when you allow fear to dictate your decisions. How many opportunities have you missed because you were too afraid to take a risk? How many prayers have gone unanswered? Not because God was unwilling, but because you hesitated to step into what he was offering. Fear is a thief. It steals joy, purpose, and the blessings that come with obedience. It convinces you to play it safe, but playing it safe is not the same as living in God's will. Faith, on the other hand, opens doors. It takes you places you never thought possible. It pushes you beyond your limits and allows you to experience God's power in ways you never could if you stayed where it was comfortable. Faith is what made Noah build an ark when there was no sign of rain. It made Moses step into the Red Sea before it parted. It made Peter walk on water when logic said he would sink. None of these people had guarantees, they only had trust. And that trust made the impossible happen. Fear will always be present, but it does not have to control you. The key is learning to recognize it for what it is, a distraction, a tool the enemy uses to keep you from moving forward. When fear rises, remind yourself of God's promises. He has never failed you before, and he will not start now. The same God who carried you through past struggles is the same God leading you into this new season. He does not call you to a new path and then abandon you halfway. He is with you in every step, in every uncertainty, in every moment of doubt. You may not feel ready. You may not have all the answers, but God is not looking for perfection. He is looking for trust. He is asking you to believe that his plans for you are good, that he sees what you cannot, and that he will provide everything you need along the way. The new path he has for you is greater than anything you are leaving behind. But to experience it, you must choose faith over fear. So take the step. Trust that he is guiding you. Do not let fear hold you back from the life God has prepared for you. The new path is waiting. Walk in faith. God is always speaking. He is always guiding, always revealing, always showing us the way forward. But too often we miss his signs because we are looking for something grand, something undeniable, something that leaves no room for doubt. We expect a loud voice from heaven, a miraculous event, or a dramatic confirmation. But God's voice is often subtle, speaking through everyday moments, quiet nudges, and circumstances that if we are not paying attention, we might overlook. Recognizing divine signs requires spiritual awareness. It requires a heart that is open, ears that are listening, and eyes that are willing to see beyond the surface. God speaks through people, through opportunities, through challenges, and even through closed doors. Sometimes the things we see as obstacles are actually signs pointing us in a new direction. Sometimes what feels like a delay is actually God's way of protecting us from something we do not yet understand. And sometimes the very thing we are resisting is the exact thing he is calling us toward. Think about those moments in life when things did not go as planned. At the time, you may have been frustrated, confused, even disappointed. But later, looking back, you realize that what felt like a setback was actually a setup for something greater. That job you did not get, that relationship that ended, that opportunity that fell through, those were not accidents. They were divine signs, gently steering you toward the path God had prepared. One of the biggest reasons we miss God's signs is because we are too focused on our own plans. We pray for direction, but deep down we want God to confirm what we have already decided. We ask for his will, but we resist when it does not align with what we expected. But if we truly want to recognize his guidance, we must be willing to surrender our own agenda. We must be willing to say, Lord, not my will, but yours. God's signs are not always about where we should go. Sometimes they are about who we should become. He may be calling you to grow, to change, to step outside of your comfort zone. He may be asking you to let go of certain habits, relationships, or mindsets that are keeping you from his best. And often the sign is not in the external circumstances, but in the restlessness you feel inside. That inner stirring, that deep sense that there is something more, that is God's way of preparing you for a new path. But recognizing his signs is not enough. Once he reveals the way, we must be willing to follow. Too often we see the signs, we feel the call, but we hesitate. We doubt, we second guess, we wait for even more confirmation. But faith is not about waiting until we are 100% sure. It is about trusting that if God is leading, he will not fail us. If we keep asking for signs but refuse to act on them, we risk staying stuck in the same place, missing out on the very blessings he is trying to lead us to. So pay attention. Look beyond what is obvious. Open your heart to his whispers, his nudges, his quiet direction. He is speaking, he is leading, and he is showing you the way. The question is, will you follow? The new path is waiting. Trust the signs and walk forward in faith. There is a reason you are here. You were not created by accident, and your life is not a random series of events. God has placed gifts, talents, and passions inside of you for a purpose far greater than you can imagine. But walking in that purpose requires more than just knowing it exists. It requires action, faith, and the willingness to step into what God has prepared for you. Too many people go through life feeling unfulfilled, sensing that there must be something more, yet never taking the steps to find out what that more is. They settle for comfort, for routine, for what is familiar, even when they know deep down that they were created for something greater. But purpose is not found in playing it safe. It is found in stepping out, in taking risks, in trusting that when God calls you, he also equips you. Walking in purpose does not mean you will have all the answers from the start. It does not mean you will always feel ready. But if you wait until you feel completely prepared, you may never move. Purpose is discovered in the process. It is revealed step by step as you trust God and allow him to guide you. Every experience, every challenge, every closed door and unexpected turn is shaping you, molding you, preparing you for what is ahead. One of the biggest obstacles to walking in purpose is fear. Fear of failure, fear of not being good enough, fear of what others will think. But fear is a liar. It will keep you trapped in places you were never meant to stay. It will convince you to shrink back when God is calling you to rise. But the truth is, you do not have to have it all figured out. You just have to be willing. Willing to trust, willing to grow, willing to take the next step, even when you cannot see the full path ahead. Walking in purpose also means letting go of comparison. Your journey will not look like anyone else's. What God has for you is uniquely yours. The enemy would love for you to get so caught up in what others are doing that you lose sight of what you are meant to do. But your purpose is not measured by the success of others. It is measured by your obedience to God. If he has called you to it, then it matters. No matter how small it may seem, no matter how unnoticed it may feel, your purpose plays a role in his greater plan. And purpose is never just about you. It is always connected to something bigger. The gifts God has given you are meant to bless others. Your story, your experiences, your struggles and victories, they are not just for you. They are meant to impact the lives around you. When you walk in your purpose, you become a vessel for God's love, his truth, and his power to flow through. You become a light in a world that desperately needs it. So do not ignore the calling God has placed on your life. Do not let fear, doubt, or the opinions of others keep you from stepping into what you were created for. The world needs what God has put inside of you. The new path is waiting.